Hey folks, welcome to the 295th episode of Primo Radical. I once again have no guest today, so I'm just going to be providing you another update. And honestly, I'm kind of feeling the same way I was last time I checked in. Just feeling like I have basically no time to do anything. I wake up at 6 a.m., have to rush to get everything done in the morning, drop my kids off at daycare, go to work from 8:30 to 5, and doing traffic coming and going, and then having to do all the nighttime routines, and then ending up going to bed at 10 exhausted, like passing out because absolutely exhausted from the day, and then having to wake up 8 hours later and doing it all over again. So I don't know if you folks are feeling the same. Let me know in the comments. Are you feeling just overwhelmed? I don't know if it's part of just my stage of life that I'm in right now, or if it's the economy and just, again, like needing to have a full-time job. I don't know if you guys are in the kind of the same predicament or feel the same way. Like things may have been a little bit easier during COVID, and now it's like, because of the interest rates and everything, just needing to scramble for cash. And I read an article, kind of a clickbait article the other day, about the added cost of, not being rich, basically, and just talking about how it really is more expensive in a lot of ways, both in terms of time, but also like having to pay extra for things because you either have to use your credit card and pay interest, or like things like medical and dental, like putting problems off because you can't afford to address them immediately. Again, either in terms of really the money that it costs to handle something, or the time off from work or whatever. So you put things off, and then it ends up actually getting much worse and being more expensive. There's a whole host of different kind of I guess examples of that, but it's pretty nuts if you take it all into account and think about all of it, and how expensive things can be. You know what else is a weird thing when thinking about money that I've been thinking about lately is retirement. I don't know about you folks and how close to retirement you may be, but I'm actually pretty far away. I have, a quarter of a century or more till I'm going to retire. But looking into that and how much money is actually needed, it's absolutely insane. They say people right now who are retiring currently, to retire comfortably, you need like $1 million. So by the time I retire, it's going to be closer to $3 million to retire comfortably, which is absolutely insane, right? Like the average middle class or working class person out there, how are they supposed to save up literally millions of dollars over the course of their lifetime so they can retire? I understand there's 401ks and all that, but a lot of people can't afford to put the money in there, let alone just survive day to day. And, you say, well, there's Social Security, but Social Security is also supposed to run out in the next 10 years. Now, it's not going to completely go away all at once, but it's going to start dissipating and not be able to keep up. So 25 years from now, it may not be around, or, may be very meager, maybe hundreds of dollars a month. And you factor in inflation and everything on top of that. So it's just crazy. It's absolutely nuts thinking about how millennials and Zoomers are going to ever be able to retire. Like, we're just, unless you hit the lottery or something, like how are you possibly ever going to afford that? Or if you just, live in a 1-bedroom apartment and never get married and never have kids, and just put like 50% or whatever, the maximum that you possibly can, into your 401k every paycheck, your entire life, from the time you're 18 until the time you're 70 or whenever you're able to retire. Like, it's absolutely nuts thinking about what's required to have a life in modern day America. And I think the one hope that some people have out there is like, oh, AI is going to change everything, right? So like, we're living in this new technological revolution now, and AI is going to come in as the savior, and everything is going to get automated, and robots are going to take care of us, and nobody's going to have to work anymore. And I don't know, there'll just be a massive surplus of money. Nobody will have to worry about anything. Which, I think is insane for a couple reasons. One, because that hasn't happened with any of the technology that we have gotten. So look at all of the increased productivity over the last 100 years. And, there was a breaking point in about 1970 where that increase in productivity, it broke away from the increase in wages. And wages have been, relatively stagnant or really going down in real terms when you factor in inflation and everything else. Because again, like think in 1970, you just had like the father basically was the breadwinner for the house. And you could have a dad who was like a plumber and take care of his house. Now you have two parents who are working full time, maybe making six figures or close to that at their office jobs, and still like treading water. That's like the facts of the modern day economy. So again, you just consider all the increases in productivity over the last 50 years, let's say, and like that has not trickled down to the working class. Like, yeah, luxuries are maybe cheaper. Maybe you can have cool gadgets and stuff like that for pretty cheap. That would have been, awesome years ago. Like, wow, you have a supercomputer in your pocket and you can look up any kind of information and, you can make content like I'm doing right now for relatively cheap. Okay, that's good, I guess. But like, then look at what it actually costs to survive. Look at the cost of housing. Look at the cost of healthcare. Look at the cost of childcare. Look at all of these costs that used to be relatively low and that normal people could pay for. And like those necessities are basically becoming a luxury now. It's almost like, having those quote unquote luxuries, like things like iPhones and stuff, like that's kind of cheap, right? Like most people can afford that. Like a homeless person could in theory own a smartphone, but like the cost of having to pay rent or your mortgage every month, that's kind of unsustainable for a lot of people, right? So just kind of speaks to the scarcity that we have endured even in the face of these technological advancements. So for folks out there to say, oh, well, AI is going to lead to this revolution where we don't need to work anymore, I don't think that's realistic. I think what's going to happen is the profit from that is going to go to the top 0.01%. It's going to go to the billionaires, the Musks and the Bezoses and those folks. And, maybe like an investor class is going to reap some benefits too. But for the average working class person, I don't know. Is it going to just put you out of a job and now you're homeless? Like if you don't have the money to buy a robot or something, then is it really making and house and repair the robot and everything else that goes around that? Like, is that really going to make your life easier? I don't know. I think AI is going to put a lot of people out of work, honestly. And I don't know if it's going to create jobs in the process where people are going to have other sources of income. Ideally, yes, like in an ideal situation, if we were creating all of this technology that makes work obsolete, then sure, that's great. And if we can share the wealth from that and everyone benefits and people can just have all of their needs taken care of by pushing a button in the morning, wow, that's great. That would be great. But that isn't what's going to happen just based on how things have been going for the last 50 to 100 years. Like the wealth is going to continue flowing upwards and not being shared across the board. So again, when you look at these advancements, there's that part of it, but then you also have to consider too, like all of the other downsides of what it means for society to be embracing all of this technology and becoming this technocratic state. And again, like just looking at the trajectory that we've been on, it seems as though it's a net negative, right? Like things just become less personable and people just stare at their screens all day, right? Like that's what we're becoming, is just like a race of people who just stare at screens constantly. You stare at your TV, you stare at your work computer, you stare at your cell phone, you stare at your tablet or your Kindle or whatever. Like you're just constantly staring at screens 24/7. besides when you're sleeping, basically. I'm sure pretty soon they'll find a way around that. So like, it just seems to me like we're entering this dystopian nightmare, or like we're kind of already in one, honestly, where we're just like constantly staring at screens, constantly, not living like people are kind of meant to live or always have lived. And we're entering, like, again, this transhumanist AI technocracy. And I don't think that's a good thing. And I kind of wonder, like, when is the backlash to that going to happen? Or is there going to be one? Is it possible? And is there going to be one? And if it does happen, is it too late, right? Like, where are the modern day Luddites, or even, a modern day Amish, just not embracing these technological changes and saying, I think we're kind of good where we are. I think things are fine. And honestly, I feel like we're kind of past the point of when that should have happened, right? Like, once we all got online and got our smartphones and all that, like, I just feel like that was kind of going too far in some ways. And, it sounds, I don't know, it sounds archaic and kind of, I guess, wrong. Because it seems like the religion that we have nowadays is around technology, right? And advancement and this progressivism. Like, oh, things are just going to keep getting better and better. And progress is always good no matter what. And if you highlight the negatives of that progress, either, oh, those are things that can be tweaked, or, well, that comes with the territory and it's fine as a net because, oh, look, we live in such an open-minded society compared to where we were 100 years ago. Oh, our medicine is so much better, and again, like, people have these luxuries like smartphones that people couldn't have imagined in the past. So, just kind of accept that there's negative consequences to that too. But, like, at what point are those negatives, is that really like the net effect? Is it a net negative where we're crossing over into this, again, this dystopia where AI is running everything? People aren't allowed to think for themselves. And you can even see this too, right? Like, if you try to, like, engage with a worker somewhere who, like, is punching things into a computer, and you're trying to get them to, like, let you do something that in the past you could just, like, let's say I'm trying to, like, order something at McDonald's, for example, and I want things, like, made a certain way. And they're like, oh, well, the computer will not let you do that. Or, like, this happens at the post office, or happens, just dealing with like call service, call representatives at different places. It's like, oh, well, the computer won't let me do that. And I think that kind of effect is happening across the board, where it's, as we hand things over to AI, as we hand things over to computers, then, oh, well, this is the framework by which the machine thinks and operates, and you cannot have an option that's outside of that. So that's really like the death of humanity, right? Like, of creativity, of independent thinking. And it's like, oh, well, we have to hand over that and negate that and not be able to think outside the box and only think within the terms of what the machine allows us to think or do. So, and that's not just ordering something at McDonald's. That's all encompassing. That's every aspect of life. If you're not allowed to think certain things, ask certain questions. I got into an argument one time with ChatGPT about whether or not Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And, like, it just kept saying, well, this was a point of controversy, but it wouldn't come out and say the Bush administration was wrong and lied to the American people. Like, it couldn't say the government lied to the people, basically. That was the line it wouldn't cross. So again, like, when we're thinking about where we're going, I have to think that at a certain point, a large segment of society is going to have to realize, wow, this is not good. We're heading in a bad direction here. Like, we're approaching, something like Terminator, basically, or like running the risk of that when we're putting everything in the hands of AI and computers. And eventually there has to be some kind of rejection of that quote unquote progress, right? Like, there has to be eventually some kind of pushback from the people of, I don't know if I want to buy a robot, or, whatever. I don't know if I want to get Neuralink in my brain. Like, I don't want to, there's got to be a certain line where like a large segment of the population says that's too far. So I just wonder what that is, if it's those examples or something else, and how that plays out. Like, I remember seeing commercials when I was a kid, like back in the 90s. There was some bank that put out this commercial of somebody getting a chip inside their finger, and the impression I get is that commercial scared a lot of people. Like, oh, they want to turn us into Borg or want to track us all with, chips or whatever. And I think that there was a pushback at the time against that. But, that was just a commercial that was not like something that was actually being suggested, I don't think, or maybe it was. But I think that there was a pushback at that time. But again, it's all about boiling the frog, right? Like the slower that you raise the temperature, the easier it is to cook the frog, basically. So like maybe nowadays that thought wouldn't be as objectionable. And again, depending on who it comes from too, right? So you have to like look at the political landscape, and someone like Elon Musk, again, with Neuralink, like, oh, Elon Musk, he's outside of the political establishment. He's even questioning Trump on Epstein. He's like this new savior, and he's a hero of the working class and the little guy, even though he's the richest man in the world. So if he is suggesting putting a chip inside your brain, well, maybe it can't be all bad. And that's another thing too, I'm thinking about retirement. Like, is the world even gonna be remotely recognizable in the next 25 years? What is society even going to look like a quarter of a century from now? Is it just going to be, again, people that are like transhumanist robots or cyborgs like the Borg? Or, are we all going to be in the Matrix? Like, what does the future really even look like? So I just keep coming back to, there has to be some kind of rebellion at some point, a peaceful rebellion, again, just maybe like the Amish, saying, hey, I don't want to put a chip in my head. I don't want to buy a robot. I don't want to stare at my phone all day, really, like, again, I think we're already past the point of where we should be. I think, there should be, and maybe there's a large segment of the people who don't embrace smartphones and social media, and maybe don't even use the internet or don't have email addresses. But it seems as though that sliver of society right now is such a small, insignificant one that it really has to expand just logically. As this boiling of the frog increases, like there has to be some reaction, even if it's from like a minority of the population, to what's going on. So again, that's sort of what's been on my mind lately, I guess, just being busy and the future and what it holds for humanity, really. But in the short term, folks, again, I am marching towards the 300th episode of this show. That is a goal that I've committed to. So even if it takes getting there with these little updates over the coming weeks, that's what I'm going to do. Because we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of this show and the 300th episode. So I'm going to have my friends on the show. It's going to be kind of an old school episode. If any of you are still around from the early days of Primo Nutmeg back in, circa 2015 to 2017, 2018, I guess. If you remember those days, I used to have my friends on all the time. We'd do these interesting roundtables just to talk about not just politics, but, culture generally, movies, TV shows, music, professional wrestling, just really anything. So that's what the 300th episode is going to be. Going to have a bunch of friends back on for a roundtable discussion. Hope you're looking forward to that. In the meantime, we have a few more episodes to go. So may have a guest on, may not, may just be episodes like this. May do a clip show or two also. That I'm used to doing that every year. Typically, there's a clip show either reviewing the past year or the history of the show. So stay on the lookout for that. As always, please do follow me across social media, even though it's evil. But, got to pump those numbers. So please subscribe, like, comment, share, all that stuff. You know what to do. Thanks for listening, folks. Appreciate it. And yeah, try to put your phone down at least for a few hours a day and live your lives.